This is Karis Alexander with Deep Truth Media. I thought it would be good to do an update on the solar activity because I experienced a very significant upgrade of solar influx or energies into my biological vehicle around the 25th, 26th. And that's really the only indicator that I can measure in terms of what's really going on for me in terms of my tracking my own metamorphosis with the solar activity. It's my understanding the information energy from the sun is at the core of who and what we are. Any direct, sudden solar outburst updates and precipitates inner change in us, and not just change in our inner landscape and mental environment, but throughout our whole level of consciousness upgrades. The remarkable fact is that the sun changes our very self and who it is we are or think we are. In other words, we change. And since in our society we tend to ignore our inner changes or not be particularly aware of them, the shock of comparing the status quo of what we think we are or have been up to the moment of a solar inundation compared to the emerging solar flux induced changes of in fact who we now are or have become and what we face can be hard to take. Ignoring these changes only makes the adjustment to incoming solar changes worse. Gravitational radiation stemming from the galactic nucleus received and transformed by our sun through the planetary alignment, further stepped down and relayed to us through solar radiation makes perfect sense to me. It makes our inner gardens grow, so to speak. We live in a vast resonant cybernetic system that functions. Otherwise we would not be here. When the sun communicates in highly energetic quanta through solar flares and CME discharges, we get in space what usually comes in just a trickle. It is these intense bursts of solar information that form us in great chunks rather than gradually that make these solar events so important. I know of no other astrological indicator as consistently and direct and potent as solar activity. Remember that solar information contains instructions for change, information, including some form of local cybernetic input that regulates our life. When we get a mass of change all at once, we can have trouble taking it in one gulp at a time and adjusting to it. The title of this sharing is Deconstructing Consciousness, Solar Activity equals the movie Knowing, Antares rocket crash equals Virgin Galactic crash, which equals One World Trade Center opening, equals signaling grand mutation in 2020, and the evolutionary impact. On October the 19th, 2014, we had the monster sunspot X flare 2192, the same day Mars and Comet sliding had their near miss. Comets are a misnomer. They're just a misdirection. Mars was aligned, though, with Antares at the same time in the sign of Ophiuchus, the serpent holder. Now, Pope Francis was born in the sign of Ophiuchus on December 18th, 1936. Not a coincidence, just an opportunity to make connections. Just a reference to who controls your ascension, the priest caste. Hence why at the same time we had the earthquake in the Vatican regarding same-sex marriage. Remember, your history is just that, a series of allegorical stories and tales that the masses believe are real events having taken place. The elite caste know that our history is allegorical. They never have and never will take history as literal as the masses have done. Your history was created because ancient astrologers knew that this period upon which we are living in now would come to pass as they created history in order to, control the masses under one universal story that plays out in all cultures, only hidden through the changes of names or characters. But the same story prevails under different guises as to your history, which is all lies. Therefore, as you decode the occult knowledge, know that you are simply sorting through lies to find truth, and that can be hard to cipher. If you believe any of what you read, this is why you must use discernment. Those in the alternative media are Freemasons, writing books to attain the next degree. So a lot of what you get in the alternative media is disinformation. Some of them know that they are spreading disinformation. Many do not. Some think they are spreading truth, even those who profess to know about ascension and how to achieve it without having gone through the process themselves. They feel they can read some text, cipher what ascension means, and get away with telling you what ascension means, yet they have not experienced it themselves. This is the problem we are faced with at this particular juncture in our history, the story, the lies that are being perpetrated on the physical world stage. Those who spread information about ascension, These are people coming into more knowledge, and it is inflating their ego consciousness. So it's tricky or to understand where people are coming from who spread information about what? The pineal gland and its activation and its meaning. You do not and cannot ascend this system of consciousness through the pineal gland. And anyone who has ascended will tell you that the pineal gland activation is one part of the process, and that if you stop there, you will forever be lost in the system of consciousness, which is what the power control force want, which is why they spread disinformation about ascension being associated with the pineal gland, and that they never will tell you the truth. So why do you think that the connection to the pineal gland and ascension has any relevance? You must think these things through, or more importantly, engage your own process of ascension, and you will learn the truth yourself. I found this funny. The article below states, with regards to solar activity, while harmless to people on the ground, these intense outbursts of solar activity repeatedly interfered with precision navigation and high-frequency radio systems for tens of minutes at a time during the past 2 weeks, center forecaster said. Now, solar flares do impact human consciousness, so that statement is absolutely wrong. Solar flares impact human consciousness, which causes humans to experience a mutation. Not everyone will be fit to handle the bombardment of energies, hence why so many are leaving the planet, dying, or losing their mind, or having mental problems and other problems that will occur as people are not able to absorb the incoming energy. That is the real issue here with solar activity. But it is hush-hush in the realms of the power control force, the elite. They don't want you to know what is actually causing you and so many psychological, physical, and emotional and spiritual problems at this time. It's a solar activity. With regards to the October 19th Mars comet sliding Antares connection in the sign of Ophiuchus. In the movie Knowing, October 19th is referenced coinciding with solar flares. If you look at the Wikipedia page for Knowing film, you will read that as you go down. So that is an important date or a marker point, I gather, just a subliminal reference to the mutation you are undergoing thanks to the solar activity and new energies bathing the planet and you, so that you come to know more, just like in the movie Knowing. Because the movie Knowing was associated with this guy coming into more knowledge, and Nicolas Cage, and the association with solar activity. Then we had a NASA contracted Antares rocket, Antares being referenced again, explodes shortly after takeoff in Virginia, which is a reference to the Virgin. Notice I highlight Virgin, just a reference to Virgo constellation, where I mentioned at the moment that all the monuments and buildings in the U.S. point to, and where we have this high influx of high density charged particles that come through when the sun is in the sign of Virgo. This picture of the Antares rocket explosion looks very much like a solar flare explosion, doesn't it? In the article I'm reading from in the description. Then we had the Virgin again, just a subliminal, Galactic Spaceship 2 in the Mojave Desert, California, which exploded. Look at the subliminal tridents in the picture. This was just a ritual of sorts, possibly for the One World Trade Center opening on November 3rd, 2014. 11/3 is the same 3/11, the Fukushima disaster date. Oh, and there are other events falling in this month of November. We have 11/22 being one of them, that being Kennedy's assassination date, but more importantly, 11/22 is a reference to the 11/22-year sunspot cycle and the fact that on 11/22/2014, we have 5 planets on this new moon date passing each other. This configuration is special and will be a significant marker for evolutionary changes in you and on the physical plane. In addition, we are in the midst of a series of Uranus-Pluto hard aspects from 2012 to 2015. The next of the 2 final astronomical aspects of Uranus-Pluto square is December 15th, 2014. The series of aspects usually precipitates revolutionary changes. This is because Uranus, a planet of electric, sudden revolutionary change, makes hard aspects to the planet of raw, brutal power, Pluto, which tends to make people rebel against the power structures that are unjustly restricting their progress or the progression of human consciousness. There are much bigger astrological cycles going on, though, such as the yugas and the great conjunctions, which, by the way, we have another such conjunction happening in 2020, just 6 years away. We are interestingly 3 years midway into the solar cycle 24. That being said, these are not mere coincidences, but intricately woven into this evolutionary timeline we are immersed in. If you go under the premise that the events of a given time are recursively related to events of other times, I think the power control force are manipulating time in order to control and manufacture future timelines and events on Earth, using the consciousness of humanity in order to create and control the reality that is being spoon-fed to us now and in the future. I have some additional information that I want to share with you, but because of my time constraints, I'm only going to be able to share a little bit of what is written here, and then you will have to read the rest on your own. In 1920, a Russian scientist, Shilevsky, discovered that every 11 years, enormous explosions took place on the sun. 1122 referenced the 11 and 22-year sunspot cycle. That is, every 11 years, a nuclear explosion occurs on the sun. Shilevsky discovered that whenever sun nuclear explosions occur on the sun, and wars and revelations begin on Earth. According to him, during the past 700 years, whenever such phenomena have occurred on the sun, there have been disasters on Earth. Therefore, evolutionary change is being precipitated by space weather. The ether. As of November 15, 2013, according to NASA, the sun was about to flip upside down and said that it could happen any day. This was what was telling to me, as that was about that we were 4 years into the 11-year cycle. And with the pole shift occurring any day, as they said, would give us 6 more years of activity, which leads to the grand mutation in 2020. But shortly after that announcement, there was no mention of a pole shift, so we'll have to assume that that pole shift happened. Now, the grand mutation is when Jupiter and Saturn conjoin in one element, either fire, earth, air, or water, for a period of approximately 240 years. Then they shift to the next element in sequence. An elemental shift is called a grand mutation. The next mutation occurs on December 19, 2020 at 0 Aquarius. Could this be why people think we are moving into the age of Aquarius? If there is an age called Aquarius, it is said to be a few hundred years away by many. Since the dawn of humanity, history stargazers have sought to discover the forces of which the planets influence life on Earth. Now, as we enter the 21st century, the long search for physical mechanism that explains how astrology works may also be nearing the end. Apropos to these times, which many astrologers believe to be a neo-Renaissance period for astrology, an English astronomer named Percy Seymour has formulated scientific theory of the astral influences that describe the solar system as an intricate web of planetary fields and resonances. The sun, moon, and the planets telegraph their effect to us via magnetic signals, says Seymour, an astrophysicist and respected authority in the field of cosmic magnetism. Omnipresent throughout the universe, magnetism is known to affect the biological cycles of numerous creatures here on Earth, including humans. To summarize Seymour's multi-link theory, it proposes that the planets raise tides in the gases of the sun, creating sunspots, and their particular emissions when they travel across interplanetary space strike Earth's magnetosphere, riding it like a bell. These planetary magnetic signals are then perceived by the neural network of the fetus inside the mother's womb, heralding the child's birth. You'll have to read the rest of this in the description, but in summary, the evidence exists. What Percy Seymour's theory does is to prepare an interpretation based on this evidence, which can be scientifically tested. Very briefly, these steps are: planets affect the solar cycle in specific ways. The solar cycle affects the geomagnetic field. The geomagnetic field affects life on Earth in certain observed ways. Specifically, many species, including man, can be influenced by particular states of the geomagnetic field. The particular influences appear to correlate with planetary position. Seymour proposes that the behavior of the fetus at the time of birth is linked to the cycles within the geomagnetic field, which in turn are influenced by solar cycle and positions of planets. Resonance is the phenomena by which the fetus is phase locked to a specific cycle. Evolutionary change is being precipitated by space weather or ether. As we evolve as a species, we will learn that our entire understanding of the nature of physical matter is radically underdeveloped, and that the energy increases that we see in the solar system will indeed culminate in what may be thought of as a dimensional shift, where anything and everything imaginable will occur simultaneously. Anyway, you can do some more research. I'll share more on this in the future. I've been talking about this since 2006. So I thought it was timely to share with regards to the solar activity. Thank you so much for tuning in. Talk to you soon.